I trust that we listen attentively and allow God's Spirit to teach us. I have a marriage relationship assessment which I was impressed that I should formulate. Actually, it was in the middle of the night that these thoughts came to my head, and I woke up and I jotted them down, questions. And then I just wanted to jot down a few, like 5, 10, 15, and ended up with about 50, 50. And I'm going to ask these questions to you this evening while I touch on some aspects of marriage and the family. That is where the tire meets the road. It's okay to talk through and to talk about the prophecies and so on, but where the tire meets the road has to do with the home and the family and the dynamics involved in our relationship with those whom we say we love the most, those who are closest to us. And that is where the most severest tests come to us. So let's pause for a word of prayer. Dear God and Father, be with us now in a special way. Draw us closer to you by your Spirit, and let your Spirit be our teacher and to carry the truth home to our heart. Draw us closer to Jesus. Help us to understand it is one thing to discuss issues and side issues and pseudo issues and non-issues, but the issue has to do with our relationship with Jesus Christ and our relationship with those within our family circle. So guide and direct us. Make us Christians truly at home, and hence Christians everywhere else. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, there's one statement that says that Christianity begins in the home. You familiar with that one? And then we bring it to church. Christianity. The second statement says that if a person is not a Christian at home, they are not a Christian anywhere else. What a statement. Then there's another statement that says the greatest argument in favor of the gospel is a lovable and a loving and a lovable Christian. Another statement says the most powerful argument in favor of the gospel is one well-ordered, well-disciplined family. It tells more on behalf of the gospel than all that can be preached. Off my head. And then there's another quotation that says, you can hear me? All right, then there's another quote that says that of all the trials, the most difficult to bear is variance in the home. Of all the trials, the most difficult to bear is in the home. So if in the home, for example, spouses can get along and learn to cope and learn to be tolerant and to forgive and to be patient, and they can endure it in the home, they are enduring some of the most difficult trials. And if you can handle some of the most difficult trials, then all the rest becomes easier. It's in the home that we learn how to endure our crosses and our losses. It is in a home that you are made better or bitter. Either better person or bitter person. It is in a home that you learn to tolerate, to respect, to love, to understand, to be patient. In other words, there's another statement that says our Christianity is gauged by our home life. So it's okay to talk about the mark of the beast and getting the victory over the mark of the beast. But if we can't get the victory over the beast of self within, it is useless talking about the mark of the beast. We already have the mark of the beast. That is the attitude and spirit of the beast. And that is how people will receive the mark of the beast. First, they will be imbibing the principles and the spirit of the beast before they actually receive the mark of the beast. That's the outward manifestation of the inward principle. So to be a Christian at home is a great thing to God. To be a truly reformed individual, to be a genuine Christian at home. where kindly deeds and love and attention, courtesies are manifested. That is where our real Christianity lies. Not coming to church, looking good, singing praises to God or preaching or teaching. It is the kind of lifestyle that we are living right within the home. Being able to bind the family together. Being able to show courtesy and forgiveness towards those who have done us harm or who have said things to hurt us. Now, a lot of people claim to be Christian, but they can't get along with their spouses. And as I said last week, it is not that they can't get along, They don't want to get along. And as I said this morning, it is one thing to talk religion and prophecies and the gospel. It is another thing to actually demonstrate it in the home to individuals whom we say we love the most and to whom we are committed to. Now, even in our homes and families, we are not fair with each other. You know that? We may be fair with the elder, we may be fair with our friends in the workplace, or even our bosses, but we are not fair with our spouses. I was once talking to an individual right at the window, and they were quarreling with their husband. A woman was quarreling with her husband. And when I came to shout, she stopped quarreling and turned around and shouted me with a smile. Hi, how are you doing? And she went back quarreling with him again in an angry tone. Now, as human beings, we live in that kind of hypocritical frame of mind or mindset. We are honestly, if we were to really assess ourselves individually, we would be able to tell whether we are genuine in our Christianity or not. We'll be able to tell. We can tell. We can tell if we are Christian by the lifestyle that we are living. We can tell. And even our spouses know whether we are Christians or not. We can fool everybody else. As one statement says, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Amen. People know deep down inside whether we are Christian. People know. And we try to fool them, but we know deep down inside whether or not we are Christian. Jesus said, how did Jesus say we can know whether we are Christians or not? By your fruits ye shall judge them. That's what Jesus said. Know them, not judge them. By their fruits ye shall know them. God has not given to us the role of being judges or lawyers or anything of the sort, but the role of witness. We are called to be witnesses. Go ye therefore and teach all nations. Jesus said, and ye shall be witnesses unto me. We are not called to be judges nor lawyers, but called to be witnesses for Jesus Christ. So, when I can see a church with its families united together in love, learning how to cope with each other, understanding the merits of Christ in the home, that tells me that there's growth. And when they bring it to church, because we bring our Christianity to church, as I said in Barbados, you don't get into marriage, how did they put it? You don't go into marriage looking for happiness, or you don't get married in order to be happy. That sounds strange, huh? You don't get married in order to be happy. You must first be happy, and you carry it into your marriage. Just like going to church. You don't come to church to be spiritual. You must be spiritual, and you bring that spirituality to you to church. So we got a lot of things wrong. We got a carrot before the horse and pulling the horse along badly. But that is how we like. And even in our minds, we cannot tell that there's cognitive dissonance. You know what I mean? Big words. Don't worry the big word. It simply means a conflict in our mind in which we know that our outward actions are not the same thing as the inward one. Cognitive dissonance. And that we are being hypocritical deep down inside. So I will just go through some questions here. Some of you may not be married. Not yet. I have them. I don't have them on the PowerPoint. And I can only give you what I believe came to my head. I believe it came from the Lord straight to my head, and I jotted down, and the Lord just had me writing. Question 1. Even if you're not married, it can be still true of you. and what you'll be carrying into a marriage later on in life. Some people are not married, but they are married. You know what's meant by married? The agents we like to ask, you married? Married is M-A-R-R-E-D. Married when you're spoiled. But married is being different altogether. Alright, question 1. Does your spouse call you by any endearing title such as dear, honey, sweetheart, or love? That's question 1. You said? Does your spouse call you by any endearing title such as dear, honey, sweetheart, or love? I knew a couple where the wife used to call the husband Crab. And he would always respond, yes, Mother Crab. So that happens in relationship. But what does that question itself tell you about the relationship? That the nature of how they view one another, how they see one another, honey, dear, sweetheart, or love. It tells a lot. And it breaks down a lot of barriers too. Breaks down a lot of barriers. But some people go through, I'm not saying anything, but some people go through their marriage without ever once calling the person by an endearing title. How do you feel when you are called by an endearing title? Don't you feel good about yourself? Yeah. You feel accepted and wanted and appreciated. The person every time they see you calls you a hypocrite, how you gonna feel? So that is extremely important, because as human beings, it does matter to us how people see us. Don't let anybody fool you. It does matter to us how people view us. Some people go along like la-di-da, they don't worry about what people say or think, but it does matter. That is why people sometimes commit suicide, when there's no person that they have that they know has accepted them or loved them. Nobody.
Probably.
All right. That's question 1. And if question 1 is not true of you, question 2 will be more difficult. Question 2 is, does your spouse say, I love you? You want to answer? I see you many times want to answer. Does your spouse say, I love you? And you know, one person was telling the other in church, and she felt good. But then the man said, listen, I'm telling you I love you, and he's saying elephant shoe. He was saying elephant shoe. No, I love you, but it looks as though he was saying, I love you. So she was being deceived and feeling good about it. Anyhow, does your spouse say I love you? That's a critical area that people need to know. Everybody needs to know that they are loved and to feel loved. All of us want to be loved, to love and to be loved. Deep down inside, it makes us feel wanted, accepted, and appreciated. So you don't have to go anywhere to get it. You know you're getting it right at home. Does your spouse say, I love you? Or do you say, I love you to your spouse? Question 3. Does your spouse communicate with you on intimate issues? Intimate issues. Now, there are some couples that can talk about everything else except intimate issues. As they come to raise a subject about intimate issues, their mouth shut, have nothing to say. Or they try to change the subject. The thing about marriage is that marriage involves an openness. Marriage is like a solvent. It frees up people to be who they really are. That's marriage. So as a matter of fact, at the first going down, there's a little clashing, like two rivers that meet, and then they go down together full stream. But there will be inevitably some little clashes there, because if everybody is doing the same thing, it's obvious, or agreeing on everything, it means that one mind is in control. So, does your spouse communicate with you on intimate issues, how they feel, how they like doing things, what they prefer? Does your spouse communicate with you on intimate? If they can't find themselves communicating, there's a barrier. And communication is one of the ways how we let people know how we are thinking and how we are feeling about them. Communication. Question 4. Does your spouse say, and when I said does your spouse say, or do you say to your spouse, either two, does your spouse say, I am wrong, I am sorry, or please forgive me? Because if they have difficulty admitting that they are wrong, or that they are sorry, or asking for forgiveness, it means they are hardening themselves slowly but surely. And if they can't humble themselves, it means that humility lacking, and they don't want to admit when they have done something wrong, so they keep that barrier between the two individuals. So does your spouse say, I'm wrong, or I'm sorry, or please forgive me? In some relationships, only one partner does it all the time. The other one doesn't say anything, because when they do that, and they confess, say they're sorry, I was wrong, because I know you was wrong in every sense too. It wasn't me that was wrong, it was you. Well, that's the problem. Question 5. And question 5 is divided into 5 parts. 1, does your spouse express his or her love to you by hugs? That's A. B, kisses. C, caresses or touches. I don't mean sexual touches either. Non-sexual ways. I don't mean a wax either. Number D, 5D. Does your spouse express his or her love to you by being intimate? That word intimate does not mean sexuality. You can be intimate with a person without being sexually involved with them. That's when a person knows that you love them and that you care for them and you give them sweet, kind words that you mean. That you mean from the heart. And the last one, does your spouse express his or her love to you by sexual intercourse? And I'm not going into that in detail, but sex is a form of worship. Everybody heard me right, huh? You heard me right. Sex is a form of worship. We communicate our values through sex. And I use the word sex not in a bad way. God invented sex, so please don't get me. I know some people grew up with sex as a taboo, and some people grew up with sex as a bad word. But it is not a good. It is not a bad word. It's a Christian word. All right. God invented sex, the two sexes, male and female, and He's the one that invented sexuality. And not only that, it was supposed to be a form of worship. That is, worship means ascribing worth to something and giving it your time and attention. In the case of sexuality, it is a way of communicating values and spirits and affections and understanding. When two people involve themselves in sexuality, they shall come out of the act of sex kinder, more patient, more gentle, more loving, more understanding. They should come out of the experience. If they don't, they're going to come out feeling used or abused, and they're going to come out feeling angry at the individual rather than feeling satisfied or fulfilled. Not only that, if, for example, before you were married, you were involved with 2 or 3 partners, and those partners dabbled with other partners before that, you were involved with all of their partners as well. And if they dabble with obia or voodoo or anything like it, don't think they're going to communicate only the possibility of sexually transmitted infection, but they can actually communicate their spirit to you and also give Satan the legal right to control you as well. When 2 people are involved sexually, there is a bonding and attachment of a feeling of belonging to each other. And that's why people normally go back to their former boyfriends or girlfriends, when they get in problems in marriage. Or even if they are married, they still look at their partner a certain way. There's still that bond between them that can never really be broken. That carnal knowledge. So we actually communicate our spirits, we communicate our belief system or even our value system to the individual, and we give Satan the legal right by that soul type. We call it a soul type. Now that's in the Bible. 1 Corinthians 6 verses 15 and 16 says, know ye not that he that is married, he that is joined to a harlot, is become one flesh with the harlot? One flesh. See that there? Now that's the soul type we're talking about. A soul type. A soul type. And no matter who you have as your wife or husband, your mind occasionally will go back as a point of reference to that former boyfriend or girlfriend. If you have not really been overcome or broken that previous soul type. If you haven't broken that previous soul type, your mind will drift back there occasionally. Or you may even make a comparison between the two. Now, a lot of people don't know that, but when you're involved in premarital sex, for example, there's a lot of psychosexual guilt and damages that come with it. Psychosexual guilt and damages. And it's not removed, it's still there lingering. Unless you confront, admit, resolve the issue, it remains there as fresh as ever. And if a similar incident occurs 10 years from now, your mind will go back to that first scene when the similar thing happened. We call that, and don't take that doubt in here, because I think I mentioned this last week. Last week I said that there was every Christmas time a young girl from a particular school I taught at would call me. Her mother died of AIDS in December. She would call me every December around that same time, crying because of her mother's death years ago. And then there was a young lady who was raped and strangled. She wasn't killed, but she was strangled in April of a particular year. And every year at April time, she would feel a choking sensation in her neck. Every year. Now tell me, that's trauma, you know. But trauma has a date attached to it in the human mind. The mind records the date of the trauma. You may forget it for the time being, but let that date come back around again, and you can see that the memory comes back on that time, and even the choking sensation, until she was given some therapy and got over it eventually. You can get over them. But there are some people like that. Trauma is a serious thing. Trauma not help, but trauma causes people to relive their past experiences. Trauma. And they have that fear, that doubt. Now, as I'm speaking to you, I remember the Malaysian airliner that was shot down this week, and the one that disappeared over the South Pacific Ocean. And I remember I have to fly back to Barbados. But that doesn't happen down that area, all right? Thank God. They were flying over a war zone area, and somebody did it. But the turbulence that I had that particular year last year, you know, every time I fly, I still come back to my mind when the turbulence occurred. So I fixed my mind. I did something last year. I was reading a particular book, and it says that when you set your mind and your will against something, all the electrical forces in the mind are poised to get ready to spring into action. And it actually can help you keep the mind off of that particular thing. And I did that for 5 hours. Not one single thought about playing Crashing came to my mind. Not one. Can you imagine that? Because I set my mind and my will, and I was able to dwell on what I wanted to dwell on. That is how we can get the victory over our thoughts. Even our thoughts. When we were coming, my eldest son said, when we went through a little turbulence, he said he remembered what happened last year. So nothing in our memory is ever forgotten. Did you hear what I just said? The mind registers it at the subconscious level. And you need to know that, because even in the final judgment, all that we have done will come back to mind. Even the slay of the hand, or a sucking of the teeth, or a look, all that will come back to the mind again. So we will be condemned not just by the panoramic view, But the panoramic view will match what is in our head. It will be what is in God's memory and what is in our memory playing back before us. Can you imagine? God has a perfect photograph of our thoughts. What do thoughts look like? Thoughts are just chemical interactions in the nervous system. Chemical. We think chemically and we pass on message chemically. And that is what thoughts are. Electricity jumping over that synapse and chemicals being fired off. That's what we. And God has a perfect photograph of our thoughts, not only our thoughts, but He has a perfect photograph of our characters. Now, what does a character photograph look like? I don't know. I don't know about it. That's in the book, Great Controversy. God has a perfect photograph of our character. It is dereographed. That's a old word she used in the book of records against our name. You don't like a particular brother or sister, and you have that grudge in your head. God sees it, God knows it, and it will be revealed in time. So what is within the home usually comes to church, even our relationship with people. So if a person has a low self-worth, or a person feels rejected at home, they're going to superimpose it even when they come to church on others. Or if they think that their wife is suspicious of them, or they are suspicious of their wife, they come to church and they may be a little paranoid. So they think this body talking about them, or that group, they're talking about me, but nobody's saying anything about them or even thinking about them. Like one person who thought that the neighbor's dog was barking on purpose to keep them awake. A neighbor's dog can't be barking on purpose to keep you awake because you and the neighbor had a quarrel. That's definitely paranoid. So, hugs, kisses, caresses, touches, being intimate, sexual intercourse. But there's a lot inside there that I wouldn't get into. I've touched on only a few. Point 6. Do you feel abandoned by your spouse? Abandoned. That is, the person doesn't meet your needs. They don't respond to you. Spousal abandonment occurs right in the home. Spousal abandonment. You are there, but it's like you are not there. And the next question is connected with that. Do you feel rejected by your spouse? And the next question to that is, do you feel repulsed by your spouse? You may not feel rejected, but every time you make an advance, you get repulsed. All right, these are some questions that you need to consider if you're talking about assessing your own marital relationship or even improving it. Point 7, do you ever spend intimate moments together with each other? Now, I see people in the world doing this. You understand me? They ain't got no Christianity in them. They're not born again Christian, but they spend intimate moments with each other, telling one another how they feel about each other. I remember talking to people who are married and who are not married. I don't tell who's who. Well, Baker, you married? Or? Oh, you're a single man. All right. Do you spend, this one, does your spouse take you out on dates? After marriage we're talking about, this prophecy says that we have to continue the kind of little courtesies that we used to do before you were married, even in marriage. Does your spouse take you out on dates? God had the days when you would go and open the car door for a woman to let her in and then go back around. Nowadays, she got to get in before you take off. You know that? She got to get in before you take off. You get in the car, she better get in and you gone. That's a different kind of age now in which we live. So it's okay to talk about religion and church and preaching and studying and presenting, but if you can't get along with your spouse or in simple little matters, there's always conflict. Feel like walking on eggshells. Can't say anything because you're going to get a retort back to what you were saying. What kind of Christian are you living? The kind of Christian life are you living? Now, I assess myself all the time with these questions, through these questions. I give these questions, and a lady answered me back. One lady answered me back, and she had quite a number of these. Now, I have these in a category called always, sometimes, rarely, or never. And the lady take never quite a number of times. And the church you're talking about. Now she fill it out quickly and give it back to me. I tell them put it in the offering box so I will know who it is. But she give it back to me. So I know who the body is. But she is afraid to. She said, oh dear, I forgot I was to tell you not, I was to put it in the box. So I already. Anyhow, but these are some serious questions. Now, that question I didn't finish. Do you feel deprived by your spouse? Deprived. When I see people in the world, or even non-Christian, how they love one another and make sport with one another and enjoy each other's company, and they always fulfill each other's needs. We had husband and wife. I've come to the husband and wife in Barbados, and they told me that we just can't get along here and there, but they do not deprive each other sexually. That's still intact. And that's a good sign. They do not deprive each other sexually. But normally when people get involved with quarrel and fighting and so on, they don't want to get involved with each other intimately, furthermore sexually. So they use it as punishment, withholding themselves from the other, which the Bible says you should not do, because in doing that you're defrauding the other person, which is a sin. And the Bible says you should only do that or abstain from it if you're fasting and praying, and then with consent. The Bible says, the Bible quick to add, with consent, that you may come back together again. But I see a lot of people who deprive their spouses and they're neither fasting nor praying. They're neither fasting nor praying. So obviously they're defrauding one another. Not knowing that when they marry that person, they cut that person from every other individual off the face of the earth as far as their emotional, sexual, or whatever needs are to be met. And they alone are supposed to meet it. But there are so many other individuals walking about who they can get involved in and become fulfilled, quote unquote. And that is why it is necessary for each spouse to see the other as an investment. Cherish, to love, to honor. Now some people go at the altar, they say for better or for worse. But then after a few months they say, I wasn't any better, nor he could be worse. And that is what happens in reality. Alright? So do you spend intimate moments together with each other? That's important. Does your spouse take you on dates? Do you spend quality time with each other in your marriage relationship? Quality time. You made a vow, you made an oath, a commitment, a pledge to God, and in the presence of witnesses. You made an oath. Do you know what Ecclesiastes 5:1-3 says? When thou makest a vow, defer not to pay it. For better it is that thou shouldest not vow than that thou shouldest vow and not pay. That's Ecclesiastes 5. Read it for yourself. 1-3. Ecclesiastes 5. So when you make an oath and a vow in the presence of God and witnesses, if there's one area that you should not withhold yourself from the person, it is your affection, your love, your intimacy, yourself. And the Bible says it's better to marry than burn. And the Bible talks about not defrauding your property from the other person, because the husband's body is not his own, it belongs to the wife. The wife's body is not her own, it belongs to the husband. That's what the Bible says. That's 1 Corinthians 7. 1 Corinthians 7 brings out that principle. You can read it for yourself again. Don't take my word for it. The next question says, do you honestly still love your spouse? Don't answer me, anybody. Do you still honestly love your spouse and care for his or her feelings? You can do some reflection on that one. If you had to do it all over again, knowing the person as they are now, and all that you have gone through with them, would you marry them all over again? I know some people can try to pretend now that. Alright, number 11. Does your spouse communicate to you honestly and openly about how he or she feels? Does your spouse think about ways how he or she can please or make you happy? You hear that one? And that's what a marriage is supposed to be like, you know. A husband and wife are supposed to be very creative. They have to be thinking about ways and means how they're going to make that other person happy. A husband and wife had a quarrel one time, and they decided to come to a pact, understanding together. Honey, anytime I come home upset, you're going to see my hat twisted at the side, and you're going to see my shoes in my hand or something like it, or my tie pulled down. You're going to know that I'm upset. And the wife says, but every time you come home and you see my apron turn at the side, you don't know that I vexed about something. So when he was coming in, and she saw how he looked, she turned her apron at the side. And they both turned and they laughed at each other. They laughed at each other. Sorry. But honestly, a lot of people aren't really happy in their marriage. Between you and me, a lot of people really are happy in their marriage. Some of them are barely tolerating it. Some are enduring it, but they're not glorying in it. The Apostle Paul said they would rather glory in my infirmity, but they're tolerating it, but they don't appreciate it. They're not happy. And Adventist couples are not happy. And you walk the streets and you see a man and a woman holding hands and hugging and kissing, and you would look and say, why can't that be me? As a matter of fact, one husband was pretty vociferous when he was describing another lady that was passing. He said, look at that lady. She's gorgeous. She's extravagant. She's executive. I can never marry a lady like that. That's what he told his wife. She looked at him. I can never marry a lady like that. You can imagine? When he said never marry, he don't mean he would like to marry one like that compared to the one that he had. But honestly, that is how people perceive themselves in their marriage. They are not happy. I asked that question in Barbados. How many people are really happy in their marriage? Now, don't get me wrong. A happy marriage is not one that's free from conflict or trial. Okay? But a happy marriage is one in which both individuals have learned how to cope with each other's faults, weaknesses, or differences. Differences. Because we have to admit first that we are different. And to accept the person as different. And then relate to that person as different. Don't try to change the person into what you want them to be. Like the bride who was coming up the altar and she was nervous. And her father was carrying her in, and the father said, don't be nervous. And she didn't comfort her, so the mother told her, all I want you to do, if you're going to be nervous, yes, but all I want you to do is remember these three words, the aisle, the altar, and him. And keep saying that to yourself. The aisle, the altar, and him. And she kept saying it to herself, aisle, altar, him. Aisle, altar, him. And she went into her marriage just like that. I'll alter him. She went into the marriage to change the man into what she wanted him to be. I'll alter him. That was her philosophy. She went into marriage like that. So when it comes to marriage and relationship and so on, a happy Christian is dependent on the kind of married life that they have. Happy Christian. A happy Christian spouse or a husband or wife. And it's important to understand that what happens at home affects how we behave at church. Right? Because the prophecy says our spirituality is gauged by our home life. That's what the prophecy says. So you want to be an excellent Christian at church, but when you're at home, you're crabby, miserable. People feel like they're walking on eggshells, and the children say, here comes the ogre. A child was showing another child the different parts of the bedroom, and he said, this is my mommy's thing, and this is buddy, and this is daddy's den. And he said, why did you call this daddy's den? He said, because all he does is come home and roar all day. And that's how the child was perceiving the father, as a roaring lion. Everybody gets timid and frightened when he comes, don't want to say anything. All right, next one. So, do you think, does your spouse think about ways how he and she can please or make you happy? Very important question. Do you still show the little attention and courtesy to your spouse as you used to before you married? You heard that one? You know, there was an old couple. There was an old couple one day, and the wife started it in bed. He wanted to be amorous, but she started. You know what I mean? Sometimes. And the husband wants to be amorous. She comes up with a whole set of faults or some things that you have done in the past at that time. But she said, you know, when we were much younger, you used to tickle me a lot. And he started to tickle her, and she laughed. You know, when we were younger and we were courting, so on, you used to bring so chocolate ice cream, and he went to the fridge and he got the chocolate ice cream. And then he said, you know, when we were younger, you used to nibble me with your teeth on my ear. And the fella got up vexed, and she asked, do you go ahead? I go to the bathroom with my teeth. He didn't have them anymore, so he couldn't do that anymore. So he got up vexed to go to the bathroom, and she was calling and demanding on him all the time. So things change when you get older, even in a marriage relationship. The initial excitement and so on that you have will fade away. That's not love, that is excitement. Then you have to settle down to the real grind of living. Learning to love even when you don't feel like loving. Learning to love even if you don't like. That's the real grind of living. That's the real marriage. Learning to accept each other with differences and with faults and with defects as they are. And stop trying to change or alter the person or to respond to them only when they are doing what you like. And that's what we have in many marriages now. There's no acceptance of differences, and there's no respect for each other as they are. Of course, before they're married, they like the person as they are until they get to know them. But here's another question. Do you withhold your love and affection from your spouse deliberately? Deliberately. Next one. Do you generally hug or kiss your spouse when you are partying or before going to bed? How many families nowadays kiss children goodbye when they're leaving for school, or hug them when they come back, or even their spouse when they come back home? How many families do that? Here's another one. Do you bathe together with your spouse? No, Pastor Leacock is not being facetious or anything like that. That's a reality, all right? If you really love each other, you enjoy each other, and you show and tell each other how much you appreciate, it will include telling them how you feel about them in terms of their bodies as well. And some people think that it's not part of Christianity or religion, you know. But it's verily you. The Bible says, and the man and the woman were together, both naked, and they were not ashamed. That is Genesis chapter 2. They were naked and not ashamed of each other. So when that innocent left them at sin, they became ashamed of each other, and they went and clothed themselves. And from that time on, the women always needed more clothes than the men to hide the shame of their nakedness. Question number 17. Do you buy gifts or flowers for your spouse? And I don't mean buying what you like for her. Notice I said, I don't mean you buying what you like for her so that when she has it, it's yours too. Some husbands buy gifts for themselves, but they give it to the spouse as a gift. That's really for themselves. Next one. Are you fair in your treatment and attitude to your spouse? Fair. Because we treat one another very, very bad. And we treat strangers and our bosses and others better and with more respect than even the one we say we love before. That is hypocritical. Do you honestly find that you treat others better than your spouse? Do you show them more respect? Do you more tolerate others' mistakes than your spouse own? That's connected to that question. Do you forgive your spouse freely when something happens? That's where Christianity meets the road. Do you hold grudges against him or her, or manifest an unforgiving spirit? Can you discuss problems freely with each other? Do you ever come to agreement with your spouse as far as intention is concerned? Do you allow your personality differences or quarrels to interfere with your sex life? How often do you engage in sexual relations with your spouse? I was talking to a gentleman the other day. The gentleman said, 2 years now my wife has not come near me or want me to touch her. Somebody else said 10. How often do you engage in sexual relations with your spouse? Can your spouse initiate sexual advances to you without feeling that he or she will be repulsed or rejected? Do you bring up controversial issues in your conversation which create alienation and strife? Are you a spouse who is easy to please or satisfy? Do you wait for your spouse to change before you respond positively to him or her? Is your love for your spouse based on his or her actions or behavior? Do you see your spouse as having problems or issues? Do you ever see your spouse as the cause or the problem of most of your unhappiness? As I said, this is a lot, and I'm only at 30-something, but there's a lot more. Do you think your marriage can really work? Do you see yourself as open to change or improvement in your marriage relation? Do you ever think about divorcing your spouse? You see how closely these questions are coming? Close cutting. Do you ever fight with each other openly in the presence of others or children? Do you discuss matters privately with your spouse when you are upset? Do you ever seek to manipulate your spouse to get what you want? Does your spouse ever abuse you verbally or emotionally? Is your spouse physically abusive to you? Are you physically abusive to your spouse, or verbally or emotionally abusive? Do you sleep with your spouse in the same bed or bedroom? Do you cooperate in doing home chores or duties? Have you ever cheated on your spouse? Some people didn't answer that one. Have you ever cheated on your spouse? Do you ever pray together about your marriage problems or conflict? Do you have family worship together? Do you ever have family conferences to help resolve issues in the home? Do you ever give in just to satisfy or please your spouse intimately or sexually? Are you open to marital counseling? Number 49. Number 50. Do you believe that God can solve your marital problem and give you a happy marriage? Those are the 50 questions that the Lord has given to my mind. And all I did was wake up and jot them down quick. And one by one kept coming additional. And within an hour, I had about 50. I can't say I made up these. They just came to my mind one at a time. Middle of the night, waking up, writing them down. And then, this is prepared by Impact Family Counseling Services, IFS. Director, yours truly. Impact Family Counseling Services. That's the name of it. Making a difference through possibility. IFS. Impact Family Counseling in brackets. So if you need these questions, please let me know. Email me and I will send you a copy of them. Now, those are to help us to do some introspection. Whether it be people who might have gone through divorce, going through divorce, still married but separated, married but having problems, shaky and stormy, or married. Those who may not be married may be married, whichever the situation, or single life, living a single life while married. You can answer those questions and do some introspection. I want to close off this segment with this little story to help with some introspection. It said a little boy went to a drugstore one day and asked to use the telephone. And as he took up the telephone, the druggist said, go ahead. Took up the telephone and he asked for Dr. Anderson. Dr. Anderson, would you need a young boy around your office to help clean up, to help run errands, or to take care of tidy your office and so on? And he paused. Oh, you already have a boy? Next question was, are you satisfied with the work that he's doing, Dr. Anderson? And he got an answer, he was satisfied. Said, okay, thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. Have a wonderful day. And he put down the telephone. The boy thanked the druggist for using the phone and was about to go through the door when the druggist stopped him. Excuse me, young man. If you are looking for a job, I would do with a responsible young man like you. He said, no, sir. He said, but didn't I overhear you asking Dr. Anderson for a job? He said, no, sir. I already work for Dr. Anderson. I was just checking up on myself. You understand that? He already worked for Dr. Anderson. He was just checking up on himself. If we learn to check up on ourselves, others would not see it necessary to do it for us or to us. We would always be assessing ourselves and saying, I am not being honest here with my spouse. I am not being fair. I am not open. I am not being affectionate. The Spirit of God has to be implanted in my heart to give me that desire to want to please or to make happy my spouse. And you are not to depend upon your spouse for happiness. You are to look to happiness, for happiness, to Jesus Christ and Him alone. And you are to give love in the hope of getting a love in return. But even if it doesn't come, you will not be surprised nor disappointed because you didn't give in order to get. If you are given in order to get and you don't get, you will be disappointed and surprised. But if you're given unconditionally in the hope that your love will awaken love in the other person, then even if they don't give it, you can still be happy and give the person time to mature and develop. But there's much more in this area, but those are just the 50 questions that I had to share with you. And I'm sure there's a lot more that can come out of that. There's another one that I have too. God's Blueprint for Happy Marriage. Anyhow, that's another thing by itself. We're going to sing one song and then quickly recap what we did in the prophecy and then go into what I didn't go into last week. Alright? Can we sing a song? Let us sing a song that will cheer us by the way.